What happened when forgiveness was the worst choice you made? I never thought forgiveness could ruin me. I was raised to believe it was a virtue, the highest act of love and humanity. My mother always said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison. But I learned the hard way that some people don't deserve forgiveness, and giving it to them can destroy your life. It started with Daniel, my older brother, my idol, the person I trusted more than anyone. Growing up, Daniel had a way of making me feel safe. He was 3 years older, tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of boy who drew attention without even trying. When our father left, it was Daniel who sat on the edge of my bed, promising he'd never abandon me. "We'll take care of Mom together," he'd said, his voice steady even though he was only 12. I clung to those words like scripture, and for a while, he meant them. We were a team. Until the day he changed. It was subtle at first. A missed class here, a strange phone call there. I noticed the smell of smoke on his clothes, the way Mom's eyes would narrow when she counted the missing bills from her purse. But I told myself it was just a phase, that he'd come back to us. He always did. Then one night, I came home late from work. The living room light was on, and Mom was sitting rigid on the couch. Her hands trembled in her lap. Across from her stood Daniel, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. The air felt thick, as if the house itself was holding its breath. "What's going on?" I asked, stepping inside. Neither of them answered at first. Then Mum said, barely above a whisper, "Your brother owes money." Daniel shot her a look sharp enough to slice through bone. "It's handled," he snapped. But it wasn't handled. I could see it in his eyes, the panic he tried so hard to bury. Later that night, I found him sitting on the back steps, his head in his hands. I sat beside him. For a long time, we didn't speak. Finally, he muttered, "I screwed up, but I'll fix it. Just don't tell Mom everything." "Dan, what did you do?" He didn't look at me, just stared at the dark street like the answer was out there somewhere. Borrowed from the wrong people. I didn't ask who. I already knew. Our town was small. Everyone whispered about the men who loaned quick money with impossible interest. Once you were in, you didn't get out. Not alive, anyway. I should have walked away. Called the police. Done anything but what I did next. I put my hand on his shoulder and said, "We'll figure it out. I'll help." That was my first mistake. Over the next few weeks, Daniel spiraled. He disappeared for days, then showed up bruised and silent. He pawned our father's watch, sold Mom's jewelry, even tried to take money from my savings. I confronted him and he broke down, sobbing like a child. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he whispered. "I just needed a little help. Please don't give up on me." And I forgave him. Again. And again. Every lie. Every theft. Every time he swore it would be the last. Until the night everything broke. I was asleep when pounding on the door dragged me awake. At first, I thought it was a dream. Then I heard voices deep, angry, unfamiliar. Mum's terrified cry. I rushed downstairs. 3 men stood in our living room. Shadows with sharp eyes and sharper knives. One of them grabbed Mom by the wrist. "Where is he?" The man growled. "Daniel." I froze. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. "He's not here," Mom stammered. The man sneered. "Then you'll pay his debt." I'll never forget the sound of my mother's scream when he shoved her against the wall. Something inside me cracked wide open. I stepped forward, shaking but furious. "Leave her alone. I'll pay. I'll get the money." The man's eyes slid to me, cold, measuring. Then he smiled. "Forgiving, aren't you?" He released Mom and patted my cheek like I was a pet. "You've got 1 week." They left as suddenly as they'd come, leaving the air smelling like smoke and sweat and terror. Mum collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "Why do you keep forgiving him? He's going to kill us." I didn't answer, because the truth was, I couldn't let go of Daniel. He was my brother, my family, the boy who promised he'd never leave me. But that night, as I held Mum, I realized something I'd never admitted before. Forgiveness wasn't healing us. It was destroying us. And Daniel was about to prove just how much damage my forgiveness could cause. I didn't see Daniel for 3 days after that night. 3 long, aching days where I jumped at every knock, every shadow passing our window. Mum barely spoke, moving through the house like a ghost. She cooked without tasting the food, cleaned the same spots over and over. I knew what she was thinking, that it was over, that forgiving him again would cost us more than money. On the 3rd night, I heard the back door creak open. His footsteps were soft, careful, like he knew he didn't belong here anymore. "Daniel?" I whispered. He stood in the doorway, thinner than I remembered, his hoodie torn, his lips split. His eyes darted around the kitchen, never meeting mine. They came, didn't they? I swallowed hard. "You almost got Mom killed." He flinched like I'd slapped him. For a second, the mask slipped, and I saw the scared boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Then he shook his head and forced a smile. "I'll fix it. I promise." "You keep saying that." My voice cracked. "I mean it this time. I just need one more chance." Mom appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale and hard. "Get out, Daniel." "Mum, please." "No." Her voice echoed through the house, sharp and final. "I've given you everything, and all you've given back is pain." I expected him to argue, to plead. Instead, he turned to me. His eyes softened, desperate. "You believe me, right? You know I can make it right." And that was the moment. The fork in the road. I could have closed the door, walked away, let him face the consequences of his choices. But I didn't. I nodded. "Yeah, I'll help." Mum's face crumpled. She didn't yell this time. She just whispered, "Then he'll drag you down with him." And she was right. The next week blurred together. I took extra shifts, drained what little savings I had left. Every dollar went into Daniel's hands. He swore he was using it to pay the debt, swore he was cutting ties with those men. But one night, I spotted him across town, leaning into a car window, exchanging something small for cash. When he saw me, his face went white. "It's not what it looks like," he said quickly. "Then what is it, Dan?" He ran a hand through his hair. Pacing. I'm trying to double the money. Quick flips. I swear, I'm almost done." My stomach sank. He wasn't paying them off. He was gambling with our lives. That night, I told Mom the truth. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just said, "Then we're done forgiving him." But I wasn't, because 2 nights later, I woke to the sound of glass shattering. I bolted downstairs. The living room window was broken, and a brick lay on the floor. Wrapped around it was a piece of paper. Last chance. Mom stood frozen in the doorway, her hand pressed to her chest. "We have to leave," she whispered. I should have agreed. I should have packed a bag and dragged her out the door. But instead I said, "No, if we leave, they'll just follow. We have to fix this." I didn't realize then how naive I sounded. How stupid. The following evening, Daniel showed up again. He was jittery, sweating, his eyes bloodshot. "I got a plan," he said. Mom refused to come downstairs. I sat at the table with him, my hands shaking. "What plan?" "There's a job. Just one. Quick, clean, in and out. Enough to wipe everything." I felt my stomach drop. "A job? Dan, what kind of job?" He leaned in, lowering his voice. "A warehouse. They keep cash there before it moves. Easy. We grab it, we're free." I stared at him, horrified. "You're talking about robbery. It's not like that. No one gets hurt. We just take what they already stole from other people. Daniel, listen to yourself. His hand slammed against the table, making me jump. His voice cracked with desperation. You don't understand. If I don't do this, they'll kill me. They'll kill you. They'll kill Mom. This is the only way. Silence stretched between us. His eyes were wide, wild, begging me to believe him, to forgive him, to save him. And I did. Again. Fine, I whispered. I'll help. His whole body sagged with relief. He grabbed my hand, squeezing hard. You won't regret this. But I already did, because deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't forgiveness anymore. This was surrender. And once you surrender to someone like Daniel, you don't get back up. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard Mom crying softly through the walls. And for the first time in my life, I didn't go to her. Because I was too busy drowning in the choice I'd made. A choice that would haunt me forever. The plan was set for Friday. Daniel was restless all week, pacing the house whenever he showed up, sketching maps on napkins, whispering about guard rotations like he'd suddenly become some kind of criminal mastermind. His hands shook when he talked, and every time he lit another cigarette, Mum would slam a cabinet just to drown out the sound. You're not doing this, she told him on Wednesday night. You'll get yourself killed. Daniel smirked, blowing smoke toward the ceiling. Better me than them. His voice carried a strange, fragile bravado, like even he didn't believe it. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe this nightmare would end, that after Friday we'd finally be free. But in the pit of my stomach something gnawed at me. Friday came too fast. Daniel woke me before dawn. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot, but his grin was wide, almost manic. Today's the day, little sis. I pulled on dark clothes with trembling hands, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I didn't. I followed him out the door like a loyal dog, too blinded by history, by love, by the memory of who he used to be. The warehouse sat on the edge of town, half abandoned, the kind of place kids dared each other to sneak into on Halloween. Daniel led me around the side, whispering, We've got 10 minutes before the night guard makes his round. I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. Are you sure about this? He flashed that old grin, the one that used to make me feel safe. Trust me, those words had once been my anchor. Now they felt like chains. We slipped inside through a broken window. The air smelled of dust and oil. My heart pounded in my throat as Daniel pulled a crowbar from his bag and pried open a locked door. Inside, stacks of boxes lined the walls, some stamped with company logos, others blank. There! He pointed to a small safe tucked in the corner. That's it. I froze. You said it was cash. That's a safe, Daniel. Relax. He muttered, dropping to his knees. He worked the dial with practiced ease, which terrified me more than anything. How many times had he done this before? Minutes crawled by. My palms were slick, my ears straining for footsteps. Finally, with a soft click, the safe door swung open. Inside lay neat bundles of cash, bound with rubber bands. Daniel's eyes gleamed. We're saved. He stuffed the money into his bag, hands trembling. For a moment, I almost believed him. Almost believed this was the end. Then a voice cut through the silence. Freeze! I spun around. The night guard stood in the doorway, flashlight beams slicing through the dark. His hand hovered near the gun on his belt. Daniel shot to his feet. It's not what it looks like. Hands up! The guard barked. My heart slammed against my ribs. My arms shot skyward. But Daniel hesitated. His jaw clenched. His hand twitched toward the crowbar. Daniel, don't! I screamed. For a moment, time froze. The guard's hand hovered on his weapon. Daniel's eyes darted between us, wild, desperate. Then, in one terrible motion, he swung the crowbar. The sound was sickening metal against bone. The guard crumpled to the ground, groaning in pain. I stumbled back, my stomach lurching. "What did you do?" Daniel's chest heaved. His face was pale, his eyes wide. He would have stopped us. He would have called them. "He's just a guard." He wasn't going to kill us. But Daniel didn't hear me. He stuffed the last of the cash into his bag, grabbed my arm, and yanked me toward the door. "We need to go, now." I resisted, my feet dragging against the concrete. "We can't just leave him, he's hurt. Do you want to die here?" Daniel snapped, his grip bruising my arm. "Move." And I did, because fear was louder than conscience. We fled into the night, the bag heavy between us, my heart heavier still. The guard's groans echoed in my ears long after we slipped back into the shadows. Back at the house, Mom was waiting, her arms crossed, her face etched with dread. When she saw the bag, her breath caught. "What did you do?" she whispered. Daniel dropped it onto the table, cash spilling across the wood. "We're free now." But I couldn't look at the money. I could only see the guard's face, hear the crack of bone, feel the sickness churning inside me. And for the first time, I realized forgiveness wasn't just destroying me. It was turning me into something I didn't recognize. That night, I lay awake, listening to Daniel snore in the next room. My hands shook uncontrollably. Every creak of the house made me flinch, because I knew this wasn't over. It was only beginning. By Monday morning, the town was buzzing. I sat at the kitchen table with the paper spread open in front of me. "Local warehouse break-in guard hospitalized." The words swam before my eyes. They hadn't released names, but I knew it was only a matter of time. Mum hovered behind me, her hands trembling around her coffee mug. "How bad is he?" I read aloud, my throat tight. "Concussion, fractured arm." "Stable condition." Mum sank into the chair across from me. Her face was grey, her eyes red-rimmed. "Daniel," as if summoned, he stumbled into the kitchen, still wearing yesterday's hoodie, hair sticking up. "What?" he muttered, reaching for the pot of coffee. Mum's voice shook. "Do you understand what you've done?" Daniel poured himself a cup like she hadn't spoken. "We're fine. No one saw us." My stomach lurched. "He saw us, Daniel." "He saw you." Daniel's eyes snapped up, sharp and dangerous. "Then we make sure he can't talk." The room went still. Mum's mug clattered against the table, spilling coffee. "You can't mean." "Relax," Daniel said quickly, though his jaw was tight. "I'm not saying we kill him. Just scare him. Make sure he doesn't remember anything useful." Mum stared at him like he was a stranger. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't the only one. Daniel wasn't my brother anymore. Not the boy who promised to take care of me. Not the kid who used to build forts in the living room. He was something else. Something darker. But I still couldn't let go. That evening, we heard the first knock. Not sharp, not demanding. Just deliberate. Mum froze. Daniel peeked through the blinds, then relaxed. "It's them," he said. 3 men stood on the porch. The same 3 who'd stormed our living room weeks before. Only this time, their smiles were calm, almost friendly. "Can we come in?" The tallest one asked. Every instinct screamed no. But Daniel opened the door wide. They sat in our living room like old family friends. One of them even patted the arm of Dad's old chair. "Word is, you boys did us a favor," the tall one said, his voice smooth as oil. "Warehouse cash was never the company's. It was ours. Consider your debt cleared." Daniel blinked, stunned. "That's it. We're good." The man's smile widened. "Good? Son, we're better than good." "You've proven yourself." My stomach turned. This wasn't an ending. It was an invitation. Daniel leaned forward, his voice eager. "So what now?" The man glanced at me, then back at him. "Now we see how serious you are." I wanted to scream, to beg Daniel not to listen. But I sat frozen, my nails digging into my palms, because I knew he'd already decided. After they left, Daniel paced the kitchen, muttering, "This is it. This is how we climb out. No more running. No more debt. We'll be untouchable." Mum grabbed his arm. "You're not dragging your sister deeper into this." But Daniel's gaze was locked on me. "I need you with me, always." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. That night, sleep didn't come. Every creak of the house made my heart race. I kept seeing the guard's face, kept hearing the sickening crack of bone. I wanted to tell someone, anyone. The police, a friend, even the guard himself. But how could I? Forgiveness had chained me to Daniel. If he went down, I'd go with him. 2 nights later, the men returned. Daniel slipped out to meet them while Mum and I stayed in the kitchen. She gripped my hand so tightly my fingers went numb. When he came back, his face was lit up with excitement. "They want us to help move something," he whispered. "One job. That's all." Mum shook her head violently. "No, absolutely not." Daniel's smile faltered. "You don't get it. This is bigger than us now. They'll take care of us if we prove ourselves. We'll finally belong somewhere." I wanted to tell him he was insane, that he was throwing our lives away. But instead, I asked the question that had been burning a hole in my chest. "What if we fail?" Daniel looked at me, his expression calm. "Too calm. Then we don't get another chance." The room spun. He wasn't talking about forgiveness anymore. He was talking about survival. And I realized with a shiver that I was in too deep to turn back. The job was scheduled for Saturday night. Daniel wouldn't tell me much, just that it involved moving product. His words were vague, deliberate, like even saying too much out loud could bring danger to our doorstep. All I knew was that this wasn't cash anymore. Whatever they were smuggling, it was riskier. Bigger. Mum begged him not to go. She grabbed his sleeve in the hallway, tears streaking her cheeks. "You're going to end up in prison, Daniel. Or worse." He peeled her hand away gently, almost tender. "I'm doing this for us, Mom. You'll see." I watched their exchange, my chest aching. For all the anger and disappointment, Mom still saw him as her boy. And I still saw him as my brother. That was the chain I couldn't break. When Saturday came, he woke me before midnight. His eyes were alive with feverish energy. "Time to go," he whispered. I wanted to say no. I wanted to crawl back into bed and let him destroy himself alone. But when I saw his face so determined, so fragile beneath the bravado, I couldn't abandon him. We drove to the edge of town in silence. The air was thick with humidity, the moon hanging low and heavy. My stomach churned with every mile. The meeting point was an old rail yard. Rusted tracks stretched into the dark, overgrown with weeds. 3 black SUVs sat parked in the gravel, their headlights off. Men waited outside, shadows shifting in the moonlight. One of them waved Daniel forward. "Glad you made it," the tall man said, his voice smooth as ever. "This one's simple. Truck comes in, you help unload, you help reload. That's it." Daniel nodded eagerly. "Got it." I stayed silent, hugging myself, trying to stop the shaking. The truck arrived a few minutes later. Its brakes screeched as it pulled to a stop. 2 men jumped out, swinging open the back doors. The smell hit me instantly sharp, chemical, suffocating. I froze. My mind scrambled to name it. Then it clicked. Drugs. Stacks of sealed packages lined the inside of the truck. Bundles wrapped tight in plastic, glistening under the moonlight. "Cocaine," the tall man said casually, catching my stunned expression. "Pure. Don't look so scared, sweetheart. You're just moving boxes." My legs refused to move, but Daniel was already inside, hauling bundles down with frantic energy. "Come on," he urged me. "Help." I hesitated, My heart pounded. If I touched one of those packages, there'd be no going back. No excuses. No way to pretend I wasn't complicit. But then I saw the way Daniel looked at me pleading. Desperate. Like if I refused, I'd be abandoning him forever. So I stepped forward. The packages were heavier than they looked. My arms burned, my back ached. Sweat trickled down my spine as I carried load after load into the waiting SUVs. Every second felt like a nail in my coffin. Halfway through, I heard a noise that didn't belong. The faint crunch of tires on gravel. I froze, my chest tight. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. The tall man's smile faded. He raised a hand, and instantly the workers stilled. Silence blanketed the yard. Then, flashing blue lights. Panic erupted. Men shouting, scrambling, cursing. The SUVs roared to life, engines growling. "Cops," someone yelled. Daniel grabbed my wrist, yanking me toward the shadows. "Run!" We sprinted between rusted rail cars as sirens wailed closer. My lungs burned, my legs screamed. Behind us, chaos exploded shouts. Gunfire. The crack of tires on gravel. We didn't stop until we reached the tree line. Both of us collapsed, gasping for air, our clothes soaked in sweat. Daniel's hands shook violently. His face was pale, his eyes wild. "We made it," he panted, but I couldn't share his relief. My body trembled, my ears still ringing with the sound of gunshots. Somewhere back there, men were being arrested or killed, and we had been part of it. "Dan," I whispered, my voice breaking. "We can't keep doing this. We're not cut out for it. We're not like them." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the briefest second I thought he'd agree, that he'd finally admit we'd gone too far. But instead, he shook his head. "No, this is who we are now. We don't have a choice." Something in me cracked. I wanted to scream at him, to shake him, to beg him to see the truth. But the words caught in my throat, because deep down, I knew he was right. Forgiveness had brought me here. Forgiveness had turned me into his accomplice. Forgiveness had made me complicit in crimes I never imagined I'd touch. And there was no undoing it. As the sirens faded in the distance, Daniel whispered, almost to himself, "They'll know we stayed loyal. We'll be rewarded for this." I stared at him in the moonlight, realizing with a cold dread that he wasn't thinking about survival anymore. He was thinking about belonging, and I was trapped with him. The news broke the next morning. I sat on the couch, numb, as the TV blared. Police seize millions in narcotics during late-night raid. Multiple suspects arrested. Others still at large. The screen showed flashing lights. Handcuffed men lined up against black SUVs. I recognized their faces. I recognized the yard. I recognized what I had carried. Mom stood behind me, one hand covering her mouth. "Please tell me you weren't there," she whispered. I couldn't answer. My silence was enough. Her knees buckled and she sank into the chair, staring at me like I was a stranger. Daniel came storming in, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. "We need to lay low," he barked. Mum shot to her feet. "Lay low? Do you hear yourself? You dragged your sister into this. She could have been killed." Daniel's expression hardened. "I saved her. If it wasn't for me, she'd still be nothing. Now we're part of something bigger." I looked at him, my chest tight. "Bigger?" "Daniel, people were shooting. Someone could have died." He turned on me, his eyes blazing. "Do you think forgiveness is free? Do you think redemption comes without cost? You forgave me. You said you were with me. So don't back out now." His words hit like a punch. He was right. I had forgiven him. Again and again. And now forgiveness had shackled me to his choices. Mom's voice broke through, trembling with fury. "You're not dragging her down any further. Get out." Daniel's jaw clenched. For a moment I thought he'd explode, but then his face shifted, softening into that familiar mask of charm. "Come on, Mom. You know I'm doing this for us." But she didn't flinch, didn't soften. "Leave." The air crackled with tension. Then Daniel grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. The silence he left behind was deafening. Mum turned to me, tears in her eyes. "Why do you keep forgiving him?" "Why?" I wanted to say because he's my brother. Because I owe him. Because he's all I have left of Dad. But the words lodged in my throat. All I managed was, because if I stop, he has no one. Her face crumpled. "And if you don't stop, he'll take you with him." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for the creak of the back door. I half expected Daniel to slip inside, whisper his next plan, drag me out into the night again. But the house stayed silent. 3 days passed. No word from him. I told myself it was over. That maybe he'd finally realized we couldn't keep running. Maybe he'd disappear and never come back. But on the 4th night, there was a knock. I opened the door to find Daniel on the porch. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling. He looked thinner, hollowed out. But when he smiled, it was the same old Daniel, the one I used to trust. "I need you," he whispered. My chest ached. "Done. They think I ran." He cut in quickly, his voice shaking. "The guys who got arrested, they think I sold them out. If I don't prove myself, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, Mom's dead." "You're dead." Fear coiled in my stomach. "What do you mean? Prove yourself." His voice dropped to a whisper. "One last job." The words hung in the air like a noose. I shook my head violently. "No, no more." He stepped closer, his eyes desperate. "You don't understand. This isn't about money anymore. This is survival. If I don't do this, they'll come for all of us." I stared at him, tears burning my eyes. "Then run. Leave town. Start over somewhere else." He laughed, bitter and broken. "You think they won't find me? They'll hunt me until I'm in the ground." His hands gripped my shoulders. His voice cracked. "I need you. Please. Just one more time." And there it was again. That plea. That hook buried so deep inside me I couldn't tear it out. Forgiveness. Even when I knew it would ruin me, I couldn't stop. "Okay," I whispered. My voice sounded foreign, hollow. Relief flooded his face. He pulled me into a hug, his body shaking. "I knew you wouldn't give up on me." But as I stood there, arms stiff at my sides, a cold realization crept over me. Forgiving him wasn't saving him. It was destroying me. And this time, it might kill me too. The one last job was nothing like the others. Daniel wouldn't give details at first. He just paced the kitchen, muttering under his breath, scratching at the stubble on his jaw. Finally, he looked at me, his eyes hollow. "It's a pickup. That's all. But it has to go smooth. If it doesn't, we're both finished." The way he said we made my blood run cold. Saturday night came too soon. He drove us out of town in silence, headlights carving through the dark country roads. My chest was tight, every bump of the road jarring me deeper into dread. The meeting place was a small house on the outskirts of a dying neighborhood. The windows were boarded up, the yard overgrown. A single light glowed inside, flickering faintly. "Stay close to me," Daniel whispered as we got out. Inside, the air smelled of mold and stale smoke. 2 men sat at a table littered with bottles and cigarette butts. Their eyes slid over me before landing on Daniel. "You're late," one of them growled. Daniel lifted his hands, trying to sound calm. "Traffic." The man's lip curled. "You think this is a game? You think you can just stroll in whenever you feel like it?" Tension crackled through the room. Daniel's hand twitched, but he forced a smile. "I'm here now. Let's just do this." The second man shoved a duffel bag across the table. It hit the wood with a heavy thud. Take it where it needs to go. No mistakes. You screw this up, you're done. Daniel peeked inside. Bundles of cash. Stacks higher than anything we'd ever seen. His breath caught, his eyes wide. We'll take care of it. But as he zipped the bag shut, the first man leaned forward, his gaze fixed on me. Who's the girl? Daniel stiffened. She's with me. The man's smile was slow, predatory. With you, huh? Looks nervous. You sure she won't talk? My throat went dry. I opened my mouth, but Daniel cut in fast. She's loyal, she's blood. She won't betray me. The man studied me for a long moment. His eyes were sharp, dissecting, like he was peeling back layers to see what I was made of. Finally, he leaned back, smirking. We'll see. We left in silence. Daniel clutched the duffel bag like it was his lifeline, his knuckles white. What's in there? I asked softly, though I already knew. Money, he said quickly. Too quickly. I turned to him, my voice trembling. What if they're using us, Dan? What if this is a setup? He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. Stop. Just stop. We don't have a choice. The rest of the drive passed in silence, broken only by the sound of his ragged breathing. The drop-off point was a deserted gas station on the edge of town. Its neon sign flickered weakly. The lot empty, except for one car parked by the pumps. Daniel's hand shook as he gripped the duffel bag. Stay here, he muttered. But I couldn't. Something inside me screamed that this wasn't going to end clean. I climbed out of the car anyway, trailing behind him as he approached the waiting vehicle. The driver's window rolled down. A man inside, face shadowed, motioned for the bag. Daniel hesitated. Then slowly he handed it over. The man peeked inside, nodded once, and said something too low for me to hear. And then the world exploded. Headlights flooded the lot. Tires screeched. Sirens wailed. Police cars boxed us in from every direction. Hands up! Voices thundered. Chaos erupted. The driver slammed his car into reverse, trying to escape. Daniel froze, caught between fight and flight. I stood rooted, my body trembling violently. Down on the ground. An officer barked, his gun trained on us. I dropped instantly, gravel biting into my palms. But Daniel didn't. His eyes darted wildly. His chest heaved. He clutched the edge of the car like it was his last hope. Daniel, I screamed. Don't! For a heartbeat, I thought he'd listen, that he'd finally surrender. But then his hand darted into his jacket. The shots rang out before I could even scream. His body jerked, then crumpled to the ground. The sound that tore from my throat didn't feel human. I crawled toward him, sobbing, hands slick with blood as I pressed against the wound in his chest. His eyes fluttered, wide with shock. Stay with me, I begged. Please stay with me. His lips moved, forming words I could barely hear. You forgave me. Then his body went still. The sirens wailed. Officers shouted. Hands pulled me back, dragged me away. But all I could see was Daniel's lifeless face, frozen in that final moment. Forgiveness hadn't saved him. It hadn't saved me. It had destroyed us both. And as they cuffed me, as they read me my rights, as the flashing lights painted the night red and blue, I realized the truth I'd been running from all along. Forgiving him wasn't love. It was surrender. And surrender had cost me everything. The courtroom smelled of old wood and dust. I sat at the defendant's table, hands clenched in my lap, trying to steady the shaking that hadn't left me since that night. The prosecutor painted me as an accomplice, a willing partner in Daniel's crimes. Every word was a blade, carrying narcotics, aiding and abetting, conspiracy. They played footage from the gas station cameras, the flashing lights. Daniel clutching the bag, me right beside him. To the jury, it looked simple. 2 criminals caught red-handed. But to me, all I saw was my brother's face, pale with fear, and the moment he reached for something he never should have touched. Mum sat behind me, her face a mask of grief. She hadn't spoken to me much since the arrest. I couldn't blame her. She'd lost both children that night, one to bullets, the other to chains. When it was my turn to speak, I stood on trembling legs. My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. I didn't forgive him because I wanted to be part of this. I forgave him because I couldn't stop seeing the boy who promised me he'd never leave. I thought if I kept forgiving him, I could bring him back. But forgiveness isn't always love. Sometimes. It's just a leash. Silence filled the room. The judge sentenced me to 2 years reduced for cooperation, for testimony, for youth. 2 years felt like forever, but it was nothing compared to the life sentence I was already carrying inside me. Prison was a blur of grey walls and endless noise. I kept to myself, clinging to memories of home. Some nights, I dreamed of Daniel alive, laughing, building blanket forts in the living room. I'd wake up with tears on my pillow, hating myself for remembering him that way. When my release finally came, I stepped into the sunlight, free but not free. The world outside felt sharper, louder, crueler. Mum met me at the gates. Her hair had gone greyer, her face more lined, but her eyes still searched mine like she was looking for the daughter she'd lost. We drove home in silence. The house looked smaller, lonelier. Daniel's room sat empty, the door shut tight. Neither of us had the strength to open it. Weeks passed. I tried to build something resembling a life. A job at the grocery store. Evening walks alone. I kept my head down, spoke little. People stared sometimes, whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. That's the girl whose brother was shot by the cops. That's the girl who ran with them. I let them talk. I deserved it. But at night, when the house was quiet, I replayed it all. The knocks on the door. The safe. The guard's face. The duffel bag. The moment forgiveness twisted into a noose. I used to think the worst thing was losing Daniel. But I learned the truth in those long, sleepless nights. The worst thing was realizing I had helped him lose himself. Because I couldn't say no. Because I couldn't stop forgiving. One evening, months later, Mom finally broke the silence we'd been living in. She stood at the kitchen sink, her voice soft. "Do you think you'll ever forgive yourself?" I stared at her, my chest heavy. "I don't know." She turned then, tears brimming in her eyes. "Maybe forgiveness isn't for them. Maybe it's for us." Her words sank into me like stones. For so long, forgiveness had been my weapon and my wound. I had given it away like it was endless, like it could save Daniel from himself. But maybe it wasn't about saving him at all. Maybe it was about saving me. From the weight of the guilt. From the endless replay of every wrong choice. That night, I stood at Daniel's door. My hand shook as I pushed it open. Dust covered everything, the posters on the wall, the books on the desk, the unmade bed. His smell was gone, replaced by the stale air of an abandoned room. I sat on his bed, my hands gripping the sheets. Memories crashed over me. His laugh, his promises, the way he used to sneak candy into my backpack. And then the final memory. His last words. "You forgave me." I closed my eyes. For the first time, I whispered into the empty room. "I forgive you." But I can't forgive what it did to me. The silence held me like an answer. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself fully. Maybe some wounds don't heal. But I know this. Forgiveness isn't always good. Sometimes it's the sharpest blade you can hand someone. And I handed it to my brother, over and over, until it cut us both to pieces. That was the day I stopped believing forgiveness could save everyone. That was the day I learned it could destroy. And that was the day I stopped recognizing who I was.